Thank y'all for coming today. I'm Lori Blevins. This is my CCRPI report for Factory Shoals, and this is for a graduate class for measurement and evaluation, and I appreciate y'all coming today. Yeah. What does CCRPI stand for? Well, as you may or may not know, it's for College and Career Ready Performance Index. It was established as Georgia's statewide accountability system in 2012, and it took the place of No Child Left Behind's Adequate Yearly Progress, or as we all called it, AYP. So, when you look at it, this is basically a breakdown of what weights there is, and this basically looks like what the report card actually looks like. This one, you can see that the big weight is achievement, followed by progress, and then achievement gap. And you can also earn challenge points, which is kind of like earning extra credit. So the reason they've moved to this is they feel like the parents understand that 100% a lot better than the pass and the fail. And I like it a lot better because it does give schools an equal chance to show progress. So what actually counts toward those 50 points in the achievement is the big weight there is that content mastery, and that is our performance on GMAS, and it does use a weighted average, and of course it's going to gradually get stronger and bigger as we progress and get better in our scores. So obviously we want people to be here and here, so it can help us a lot. So there's also the component of post-school readiness, and that continues to, shows us a couple of things. So we have to have positive movement on the access test, which is the test that English language learners they want them to move from one band to the next positively. Our students with disabilities need to be served in general ed classes more than 80% of the day. And then the things that I definitely look at is Lexiles, which we want in grade 3, we want our kids to be scoring at 650 or above, measuring on the Lexiles by the GMAS. And then the same thing with 5th grade, a Lexile measure of 850 or above, based on the GMAS. And then we also look at a couple of other things. The students that are completing those career awareness lessons, and in grades 1 through 5, and then also attendance, 6 days or fewer of school missed. So in elementary school, we have a predictor for graduation, which we may think is kind of crazy, but it's 30% of that achievement score, and that is whether the kids are performing at 3 or 4 or proficient or distinguished on the GMAS. And that does count for a big chunk of that. So how do we do? Well, if I pulled this off of the actual little report, it's 26.8. So let's break that down a little bit more. If you look at the actual report card, this is, and you see we're under the achievement tab. If you look at this and you can tell which one we did best at, and if you look, I was pleasantly surprised that we did so well in science. I was really glad to see that. That's where we made the biggest gains. So of course, there's always room for improvement, but I thought that that was a good thing to see. I also noticed that we did have some issues in our English language arts, and I think combining that writing process and the way we're changing the way that we're doing things now with those constructive responses, I really think that that had a bearing on that. Okay, so then we looked at those other things we talked about, like the access and serving the kids serving in being served in regular ed, and then this is our Lexile 3 and 5, and this is our career awareness. And of course, we did really well with our career awareness, and we did really well. I was really pleased to see, that even if that is the indicator, we're moving in the right direction on the access test. So we are making progress there. We still have some room for growth, of course, and I know scheduling has to be a nightmare with special ed. So I'm sure that's an issue still. But we have room for improvement, especially in the Lexiles. But we're keeping working on that. So if you're looking at our predictor for high school graduation, if you're looking at our predictor, you can see our 32% not quite where you want it to be. All the kids, that's on all of the total battery of tests. That's where we were at proficient or distinguished. So we do need to work on that. I put an arrow here because I find this really interesting here. It's kind of like a disclaimer at the bottom. And the kids have to be at the same school to be counted toward that. And I think maybe that we're at a disadvantage for that because we're transient. And I don't know if that's something they're going to fix or if they've ever thought about that, you know, because if the kids aren't at the same school, we can't get points for them. So and we have no control of where they live. So I thought that was an interesting point. So we have also progress points that we can get, and progress points are things that I don't think we've ever done. I've done education for a while. We've never had that before that I remember, and I could be mistaken because I may not have been knowledgeable at that point. But it's a student's growth related to someone that's similar to them. So, you know, if you're going to compare your high students to your high students, your low students to your low students. So, and points are given for each of the content areas. And how did we do? Well, I'm very pleased to show you that 38.5 out of 40 points. So that shows you we did make some serious progress, and I was really glad to see that. If you look at the progress on the part on the report card, you'll see the science and social studies is where we've made our most progress, if you're looking at that. And then again, English language arts is an area where we're struggling. So how was that achievement gap scored? I thought this was very interesting. I had to have my husband talk to me a lot about this to make sure I was getting it right. And, but the points for your achievement gap are based on the lowest 25 percentile of your school, the scores, you know, that they've already set that base in 3rd grade. And so they will give you that for your achievement gap or even the achievement gap size. And obviously you want your size to go down. The smaller your gap size is the more points you're going to get. And then if your gap changes, of course you're going to want the gap to get, you know, you're going to want the gap to get smaller. So when you're going to get more points when it gets smaller. So I had to think that through because, you know, it almost seems like anti, you know, one or the other. So it's my understanding that we get the points for the higher of the two after I looked at what we got. So that's kind of a win-win situation, I think. So I was glad to see that. So when I looked at our achievement gap, this is an area where we really excelled. If you're looking at that again in science and social studies, we achieved the points possible were 3, and we got both of those. We got both of the points possible, and we made the most, you know, in the progress and in the gap size. We did really well in the progress, though. I was really pleased to see that. So how can challenge points be earned? Well, they can be earned because we are going to be at proficient or above on the total GMS battery. And this is, remember, these are like extra credit points. And they earn a passing score in our fine arts department. They pass music and they pass art. So that's one way we can earn those points. And then also it's the percentage of 5th graders who have that complete career portfolio, because they're doing that. And once they have all those things checked off, we can check them off. And then of course, all of us that use the statewide longitudinal data system, every time we are using that, we are moving toward getting those points for our challenge points, our extra credit points. So how did we do with that? Well, if you look, you see that the most points we got were with our economically disadvantaged and English language learners and our students with disability. We did do well with the performance points. Exceeding the bar, we did not do as many points with that, but I think some of those points are still in transition once I looked at what those actually were. So if you look, though, for the economically disadvantaged, the English language learners, and the students with disabilities, if you look, there are flags, and I'm going to show you a slide with flags on it for flag count. The total flag count for those students they're a subgroup. Every subgroup has their flag. So they have 12 flags. So if they meet in their subgroup, for example, if you are a black boy and you met in your subgroup, we're not breaking down by boy, but if, for example, one of the things I'm going to say is going to be our celebration is the black subgroup met in this, and they were the only people that met it. So if you meet your subgroup target, we get a point for you. So that's an area we didn't do too bad in. I mean, really, if you look at 3/4%. So the points are based on the number of students who meet their subgroup. So that's, and I want to show you the flags in just a second here. I'll show you the flags. So these are the 11 items that we can make extra credit points on. So if you're looking, the only area we did actually make extra credit points was that our students passed in our fine arts department. I'm looking at our fine arts people going, good job! So that was the area. And I know some of these things are still in progress, like getting STEM certification. Some of these things are new. And so, there are areas and those that we haven't, even talked about getting this yet. But, percent of teachers using this data, SLDS, we can raise that. There are other things that we can do that we can, definitely get some of our students up, moving them up in those areas. So there's some areas that we can work on. But I wanted to also just show you quickly, these are the flags that I was talking about. These are our flags, and if you look at our flags, it shouldn't be any surprise that our flags, that the green flags that you see, which of course that means go great, are in science, because everything I've said so far is showing you that that's where we were really doing it. And it's not going to be any surprise when you look over here and you see the most red flags you're going to see is in English language arts, which we've already said. So those are areas where we definitely, you can see these are areas we could work on. So I picked a few things just to celebrate and say this is what we really did good on. And also I picked a few things to talk about our challenges. So science was the highest achievement for all students, with 61% developing or above. And I think that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. And I also think it's pretty awesome because that's something we focused on that year, and we did good. So all the Hispanic and the English language learners met the state performance rate and the subgroup performance rate in science. So that means they did really well. I mean, they didn't just meet their subgroup. They met what the state said they should do. So I thought that was a big celebration. So I thought we were doing something right. And I also thought that it was good to note that we got the maximum amount of achievement gap points that you could get in science and social studies. That means we're making that maximum growth. I thought that was a good celebration. So the challenges, life is not without challenges. That only 49% of all of our students scored at developing learner or above. So that means 51% in English language arts are still not where they need to be. And I really think it's constructed responses and writing. I really do. I think we can read. I think we can interpret what we're reading, but we need to get that writing going. Another thing that really, I guess, bothered me was that only the black subgroup met their performance target in English language arts. No group in the whole school met the state. So that shows us we definitely got some work to do in this English language arts. And the last thing was not English language arts, but students with disabilities did not meet their state or their subgroup performance target in math. And that is not something, I mean, I did the year before last, this is something that has been